Namo Bhagavate Sri Aurobindo. Namo Bhagavate Sri Before we actually talk about our topic that I've chosen, I have a question for all of you. Maybe this one particular question, each one of us might have asked someone for sure or would have answered this question. Tell me about yourself. Right? So when we go to an interview, we all must have gone through that process, right? The first question asked, even in a college interview, wherever we go, or when you're trying to introduce ourselves to others also, the question is, oh, where are you from? So we are just trying to strike a conversation with this question, tell me about yourself, right? When this question is asked, how do we usually start? I prefer more of an interaction, so please, whatever you guys think, you can tell me.
My name is so-and-so, I am from so-and-so, I am doing this.
Correct. So either you say, okay, I am from so-and-so place, as you very rightly said, uncle, my name is this, I am from so-and-so. And then if you have to extend the conversation, we go on with, oh, I like this, these are my hobbies. So we try to actually connect to people to our hobbies as well, right? Or a common interest that we have. In this process of introducing ourselves to others, and we are constantly using this word, me, I, my name, I am from so and so, I am doing this, this is my hobby, and what is that we are trying to emphasize that I there is self. I am talking about myself. Now, if I have to tell you all, okay, I am Prafulla, I sing, I am talking, I am connected to Mother Gurudev, so as you all. So, what I am trying to do here is introducing myself. Today, a topic to explore, I would say, than a discourse is self. I found a beautiful sonnet by Sri Aurobindo, Self, and based on that is what we are based on that is what our conversation or today's talk is on. What is self? If this question is asked, any psychology student or generic definition of self is a combination of elements, right? We would say it's an union of elements like the body, your emotions, your thoughts, your sensations, your hobbies, your habits. We usually say this. This constitutes, this is a definition, a textbook definition of self. The union of elements as body, emotions, thoughts and sensations that constitute the individuality and identity of a person. So when we are talking about ourselves, we are just trying to show an identity of ourselves to others. This identity basically helps us mingle in the society. Why do we do that? Why do we go and then talk about ourselves? Is to make our own stand in the society that we are into. So we are trying to make our own tribe, if I can say. Right? So when we all come here, assembled here at the Bhavan today, the main motto is to connect to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So we are creating our own society here, our own tribe of people with similar interests, and that is what is actually happening, right? When I was just going through this understanding of this self and I was reading the sonnet of Sri Aurobindo, I had this question in my mind, like when we are saying self, okay, this is me, this is me, this is me, is there something which is connecting? The identification of I is one way or the other connected to an ego. Ego is there in each and every individual, every living being, and this I is obviously directly connected to your ego. Of course, the textbook definition of ego is very different. If someone says, oh, you're egoistic per se as a definition, that means you are very rude, you're proud. But is that what ego is all about? Is the question that we really need to understand. Is ego really needed? What ego does to us? Ego is ledanukkondi. Imagine you have no ego. I am not talking yet again to a state wherein you are in a sadhana and then no ego state. No, I am talking about a general basic line of a human existence. If there is no ego at all, then there is no identity at all, right? So this ego basically gives us this identity. It gives you a channel to identify yourself. So now the question comes, is the self and ego are connected? If they are connected, how are they connected? Which way is the self and ego connected? The ego is the center of consciousness, while the self is the center of the entire personality. Let me reread this. The ego is the center of consciousness, while the self is the center of the entire personality. Okay? Which includes the ego, consciousness, and the unconscious. What is it including? The entire personality includes the ego, consciousness, and also the unconscious. We have the unconscious, we have a lot of things in our system which are still not conscious about even what is happening in our own self. We don't know, right? So this personality is a combination of all that. The self is considered to be the greater circle, while the ego is the self-contained center within this circle. I really want you all to visualize this, because this point helps us understand the self very clearly. The self is considered to be the greater circle. It's a huge circle when we are talking about ourselves, while the ego is the self-contained center within the circle. This ego stays in the center and then kind of builds up its own personality as the spikes, and then it's a huge circle is the self. Now this is again like a very generic understanding. Okay, I am here, I have ego in the center. Now I am trying to build my character. I can go back to a lot of Puranic stories connecting to this self and ego as a center. For example, let's take the Samudra Mathanam that we all know, we have heard about this story, right? There was a purpose for the Samudra Mathanam. Everybody wanted immortality, whether they are devatas or demons. The main ideology of the Samudra Mathanam itself is to attain immortality. So everybody has got this desire of wanting to be immortal. Now what actually differentiates the devatas and the demons? So devatas doesn't have any ego. Were they out of ego? In that case, then we wouldn't have heard a lot of Puranic stories talking about Indra. When Lord Krishna is doing the Govardhanagiri story, kuda manam vinne untam kada, Govardhanagiri parvatani ettutunnappudu, when Lord Krishna has been doing the yajna in order to help or in order to do a sacrifice to the Govardhanagiri than Indra, the story very clearly says Indra was so hurt about it, he was egoistic, he comes down and then fights and then realizes. So what is happening? The inconscient which is there in Indra's as a personality has been transformed when he came to Krishna, and then Krishna revealed himself to him. That's the story we know. Similarly, when we go back to the Samudra Mathana, it is a question of identity. They were all trying to figure out or fight for, okay, I am a Devata, you are a demon. So the identification or the differentiation of these two things has been very clearly mentioned in the Puranas as well. There is also a very beautiful folklore that I can narrate in like a very short story. There was a sage, and then he was passing by after his tapas, and then he sees a rat. He doesn't have kids. You must all have heard this story as well. A story of a sage and a rat. So sage with his tapas shakti converts the rat into a girl, a child, and then takes her back to his hermitage, where the girl has been brought up absolutely with love, care, with all of knowledge and beauty. Okay. Now, this is the core and the center we are talking about. After a particular age where the sage wanted the girl to be married off, he offers the marriage proposals of the mountain god Didi. అంటే all five major వీళ్ళని ప్రపోజల్కి తీసుకొని వస్తారనమాట. So he asks, okay, do you want to marry the mountain, the god of mountains, or do you want to marry the god of wind? Do you want to marry the Varuna Deva? But she says, no, I don't want to marry any of them. She was like, okay, maybe can I have someone more greater than this? Someone more greater than this. So her desire was to find someone greater than this. In this process, the sage thinks for a second, and then when the sage offers a marriage to mountain, okay, and then she says, is there anyone greater than mountain that can shake him up? Then the sage says only a rat, a mushika can do that. Only that can actually drill a hole through a mountain as well. And the girl says, I want to marry him, the Mushika Raja. She didn't want to marry the great souls which have been offered, but then she wanted to marry a Mushika. Then the sage thinks, okay, this is the pravutti of your soul. She's born as a soul, as a rat. That soul is born as a rat. It has got its own journey. No matter how many spikes of personality we are building in, the core, whatever is there, it just gets attracted to that. If I go back to this story, connect to what I just stated initially, we try to club and then get close to our own tribes, right? What is that we see in others? Absolutely an image of ourselves. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but this is my personal experience. When I go to a group of people, I suddenly get connected to few, and few you feel like, you hit. Okay, I'm not comfortable with them. You haven't met them before, you haven't spoken to them, you don't even know them at all. But then the vibes, we call it vibes, I don't feel comfortable. Yeah, we have this kind of a thing. We don't feel comfortable with few. Why? Technically, if you understand, you're trying to look your own image in the others when you're trying to make friends. When you see a particular aspect, a personality trait that is there in you, in others, you feel comfortable, you feel get closer with them, and then you start the conversation. Otherwise, the conversation is on a very peripheral level. Yes or no? Do you all agree on that? So now what is happening in this? Your personality, as per the definition, is the self and ego connected? Of course they are connected. Now what is this ego we are talking about? So is the ego about, oh, I am the one, kind of a proud ego, or is ego really needed to work on ourselves? Let's try to understand that. The ego that we are talking about here is a survival mechanism. If that ego is not there, you will never be able to survive. So ego genuinely works as a survival mechanism. Alright? The ego is a survival mechanism that protects us. It's a cup filled with opinions and speculations about who we think we are. If that understanding of what we are, what are our interests, who we are is not there, then we'll be completely lost in this society. When I say society, it's not the people. In general evolutionary process, you will be extinct for sure. So what is this ego? Ego is a survival mechanism, and it actually helps us with opinions and speculations about who we think we are. Ego as that aspect of the self that has the ins and need to see itself in a positive light. Make no doubt, the self can be our greatest resource, but it can also be our darkest enemy. So usually the perspective that we have towards ego is, okay, they have ego so they're bad. But if we know how to balance that ego in yourself, it can be a greatest boon to build your own character, build your own personality. It's like this. self is here, you are here. If I just use a basic synonyms in English starting with self, for example, can I just have few words that start with self in English? Can be any word, but it has to start with self.
Self-analysis.
Selfish, self-analysis, okay. And more? Few more. Can we have a little more?
Self-identification.
Self-identification, beautiful. It should start with self. Self-analysis and introspection go hand in hand. We are talking about this self. A word start with self.
Self-knowledge.
Self-knowledge, self-criticism. Why only all positive? There is a negative connotation to self as well. Self-criticism, self-motivation, and opposite to that, self-doubt. Self-esteem, low self-esteem. So what is that we are trying to do with these words here? Here it says this ego, or if I say self and ego, for now, if we just take self and ego are the same words, okay? This can be a greatest source to help you grow, or can be a darkest point, right? Self is here, selfish. If you are thinking positive, you are selfish. Just the lame words is what we are talking about. If you are not positive or you think about yourself, you are self. So if you are thinking negative, you are selfish. If you are thinking positive, you are thinking broad and being generous, selfless, right? You are so centered about yourself wherein you are not connected to anybody or not worried about anything, then you are self-centered. If that's not the case, you are generous. So what is happening in this? So this is all. Now the question arises. What is that we are trying to do here? There is self, I am here. For example, I say I am the self, I am standing here. Depending on the situations, if I am being selfless, I come to a positive box. Depending on a situation, if I am being very mean for others' perspective, if I'm being mean, I'm coming into a box of being selfish. So what is this chain happening? What is happening with me? Can you all please give me why is that same me being put into a positive box, same me being put into a negative box? Any thoughts? I want to give a cue. Thoughts? Yeah, I am the one. I'm the same person. For few, I might be very selfish. Okay, and let me put it this way. I am the same person. Okay, few situations, few circumstances. For few, I might be very selfish person. Few circumstances, situations, I might be a very selfless person. You cannot say an individual is selfless always. Yeah, you cannot say a person is self-centered always as well. So what is happening in this with the same person being pursued very differently in different situations? What is that happening here?
You are pursuing your self-interest.
Okay.
In contrast to other interests.
Okay.
Then you are selfish. You will be viewed as selfish.
Okay.
When you are not confronting their self-interest, you will be viewed as selfish.
So it's like if I'm acting as per their wants and needs, I am good. I am selfless. If I'm not acting as per their wants and needs, I am selfish. Right? But what is happening in me is the question that I'm asking. See, this is the other's perspective. For them, I am selfish and selfless. But for us also, we know whether we are selfish or not, or whether we are selfless or not. Now, what determines that? What determines your personality? Now, coming back to the question, we said personality, yeah, our habits. Initially, when I said, tell me about ourselves, we very happily said, I am so and so, I did this, I studied that, I worked there, this is my experience. Now, what is that? That is building your personality, which segregates you into multiple chunks. There is a very beautiful composition in music, Na Nati Bratuku Natakamu. You all must have heard this, right? Na Nati Bratuku Natakamu Kanaka Kannadi Kaivalyamu. అందులో there are these 4 lines that I want to discuss. పుట్టుటయు నిజము పోవుటయు నిజము నట్టనడి నీ పని నాటకము తెగదు పాపము తీరదు పుణ్యము నగి కాలము నాటకము. If we try to understand these 4 lines, we will surely understand how the self or the personality is built. Puttutayu nijamu, that's the truth. We are all born. Povutayu nijamu, we all know that the life cycle. Nattanade nee pani, whatever you are doing, Annamacharya is saying it is a natakam. Okay, it's a theatre. You are the character you are playing by the play that's being created by someone else. That we all know life is like that. I can give my own example. I've planned very beautifully today. 4 o'clock I started. I thought I'll be here by 5 o'clock. I'll have 30 minutes to sit quietly at mother's feet, compose content and then do it. But the journey of the nature was very different. Some celebrity coming and I was tangled in the traffic for almost 1 hour. Right? That's a very minute, minuscule of thing that we are talking about. So whatever is happening, it's a journey being created by someone else. But these journeys, for example, a same example if I take it, if I get irritated, restless, and I have this, okay, oh my God, I'm not on time and they're all waiting, if I get so restless about it, my personality is changing for sure there as per the circumstances. And when I come in, I'll be very irritated, I'll be restless, and I'll not be able to deliver what I'm supposed to deliver. Right? So now, in this natakam, the journey that is happening, your personality is also changing as per the circumstances. So it's a choice. Whether you want to get irritated, be frustrated, act and react, or you want to step back, relax, and then say it's okay. Things happen and then you have to navigate through it. తగదు పాపము తీరదు పుణ్యము నగి కాలము నాటకము. పాపము పుణ్యము, we take these 2 words, or I just club these 2 and then say karma. Okay, I don't know what papa I did in my, I don't even know what I'm doing in my this janma, forget about the purva janma. I have no idea whether I am walking the path correctly. I don't even know whether it's a path or not. What are we talking about the purva janmas and what I'll do in my future? I don't know what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, how I'm acting and how I'm supposed to act. Right? But there are situations intuitively we all react to few things. Good, bad, worse, pakkan pette, we do act. So we call them as samskaras. So from the janmas your thing is carrying and these samskaras build your personality. Few habits that we have, right? Few interests that we have. Not necessarily every interest has been cultivated. No. There are few things that are inbuilt and something somewhere kind of connects and then you work on it. You work to improve on it. It's not like you're picking up. Suddenly I can't sit here and then say I'll become an IAS because I found interest to become an IAS. No, right? There must be that urge to become that academically highly oriented. So that is something which is inbuilt. So these samskaras are all like, we are being carrying those things, and this is what builds our personality. Now back to one step back if I go. When I said this self is here and I am being put into multiple chunks, right? What is putting me into multiple chunks? First level, my own samskaras is putting me into multiple chunks. When I say samskaras, my own inherent habits, my own likes and dislikes, right? And the way I act upon those things are putting me into this thing. If there is some situation happening, I have a choice of being very humble and then being there and then help them out than being selfish and then just walk out. It is my choice. But as a personality, we all have that inbuilt. కొంతమంది overly generous ఉంటారు. No one has taught them that you have to be generous, and there has never been a guideline in a book that you have to be generous to people or you have to be generous towards your surroundings. You have to be generous to your own self. No one has ever told that, but that's an inbuilt thing for them. If I try to connect this whole thing into a flow chart, now the first question comes is, As I said, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm thinking, I am not aware of what's happening with my own self, then what am I actually talking about? I don't know if I have ego. You must have seen people, right? They are very, very literally, when I talk about the negative connotation of an ego, you might find people who are very arrogant, but they don't even realize that they're arrogant. Have you ever met people like that? In your lifetimes, you must have seen people like that, right? They're very arrogant, but they don't even realize that they are arrogant. All right? You must have seen people absolutely humble and absolutely generous, but they don't even know that they're humble and generous. For them, it's like a part and parcel of their system, and they don't know what it is, right? So, this awareness comes here. When we are talking about self awareness is a beautiful thing which helps us connect to this self. I'm slowly unraveling each step and then coming to what Sri Aurobindo, the master, has said about this self in this the way I'm going through is that first of all, if someone is getting this existential question, what am I? Whom am I? Not in a sense when you are irritated, you're frustrated, depressed, and then something you have a desire or some wish, it's not fulfilled. Obviously, we thought this is a very tricky part of the human system, your mind. It plays a lot of games, right? It comes up with the question beautifully. Oh, what the hell am I doing with my life? I couldn't even do that. That is not the existential question. That is a trick question the mind is playing for our system to get into dumps and then feel, let go. "Ah, theek hai yaar. Okay, I don't think so. I'm capable of doing it." And then we leave things, right? That is not what I'm talking about. When you are in a prime of what you're doing, per se, that can be your professional life, your personal life, being contented with what you're doing, but still you have this question, what is my purpose? Or what is that I am doing? That is a genuine existential question. Or the other slight flip side of that question, what can I do to reach to the next level of whatever I am doing? I am even bringing the materialistic things here. You are on the peaks of your profession, but if you are very restless about it, then there is really something wrong that one needs to step back and see why. Why is it? I'm not talking about the pressure here. Pressure comes with the work. I am talking about you're restless, absolutely restless. You don't feel happy at all with whatever is happening. You're not even able to enjoy the slightest to the slightest small things happening in your life. If you're not able to smile, then there is genuinely something wrong. And this existential question needs to come forth. When that comes, believe me, a lot of things change. This self that we are talking about, I am here, and then the negative, positive, when that question comes, whether it's a negative connotation of self or a positive connotation of self doesn't matter, because everything comes together as a core. Everything comes together as a beautiful combination. It's like a keypad and a lock. It just comes together like that. But when we have this question of what is this, what am I doing with my life, or is there anything else, then one thing that each one of us will do is to observe. We observe ourselves. We start observing, and this happens. This is a very organic process, and it happens. We start observing ourselves. We start observing our reactions. We start observing what's happening with the thoughts and how we are acting and reacting. We also start observing our emotions, whether they are high, whether they are low. I am not even using the words vital, mind, physical. No, in a very generic term, we will start observing. I can very clearly say, if you do a statistical review and then you have a group of people as a collected data in hand, and then just share a questionnaire, okay, 80% to 90% of people don't even know or understand what is happening within this body. Not just the physical, not talking about the diseased headaches, back pain, knee pain, no. I am talking about what exactly is happening and how these things are connected. 90% of people are happily living there. It's nothing wrong. But when that question comes, this 90% seems very irrelevant. That 10% of that questioning we start observing. Every minute detail, every moment, the way I talk, the way I walk. We slowly start, we inculcate it. It is not like in a jiffy, it's not a genie. Like Arabian Nights, you ask a desire and then it happens. No. It'll take its own time. You'll have your own challenges in doing it, but that observation starts. Now, when that observation starts, you start acknowledging. And what is that you're observing? You're observing your habits. You're observing your thoughts. These are all habit. Thought is also a habit, right? You have a particular way of thinking. Unless and until you know you have a particular way of thinking, unless and until we know there is a particular way of acting towards things, there is no way you can change it. So once the observation comes, then comes the process of changing it. There are again a million ways of doing that. Now, once that process of changing starts, then the flow of this coordination of the core that we are talking about, the ego that we are talking, everything changes. Because you as a person changed, your personality changed. Then the way others are pursuing you really doesn't affect and you're not even bothered about it. Yes or no? Till this happens, we are bothered about what others are thinking about our personality. We try to project ourselves in such a way that everybody around us are pleased, so that we are pleased. Yes, the ego is happily playing there with the self in such a way that we do everything to be pleased. We do everything to be accepted by whom? By others, but not by yourself, because we don't know what that self is about. Whatever we have heard from our childhood, whatever we have seen from our childhood, few, of course, as I said, some samskaras follow through, but after that also, right, the conditioning, we use these words, they are conditioned to be in a particular way. Your preconceived notions, they all come from the hearings that we had, people we have seen, the judgments that people have made about you had built your own personality. Yes or no? Someone says you can't do it as a kid. It's a very simple examples also we can take. You go to a child and then say, I don't think so you can do this, Nana. Suppose, imagine a kid comes and then says, I want to climb the wall. Right? If an adult says, oh, you want to climb a wall? Awesome, but I don't think so you can do it, Nana. It's too high. They are not doing it intentionally. They are not trying to stop the child for sure. But what is happening subtly, the child is understanding, oh, this is a huge wall, higher than me, I cannot climb. One statement being repeatedly said. Over the period, what happens? That fear sits in our own system, our own self, that fear literally gets into our system. And every time if they have to do something challenging, we do take a step back, but in a negative way. We are not stepping back in a way to see the situation and then face it with the courage, but we are taking a step back. So subtly, coherently, this is happening. And if that has to change, of course, we will not be able to do it when we are young because we are conditioned in multiple ways. But as an adult, if you can think about it, what is that makes me as me? Or what is that me is all about? There is a lot of change that happens here. When you want to change, the best way is to connect to your higher source. Now comes a big word, higher source. What is that higher source when I don't even know what I am, where I am? What is the higher source I am talking about? Very simple. Chinnappa nunchi, as per our cultural thing, we are all trained to pray to the gods, our Ishta Daivas, right? As a form of a puja, as a form of a ritual, the first step is to connect there, because at least we've made that differentiation, human, God. Very simple differentiation has been made right from our childhood, we know that. Connect to that. Okay, say, okay, this is what mother says, connect. But of course, on a very different level, when you connect, once you start connecting, the Ishtadaiva is not there, Ishtadaiva is right here in your heart. You don't see God somewhere there, but they are in you. And that is what the Vedas, the Vedantas, Upanishads have been speaking, reiterating, that the Daivatvam is not somewhere there, it is inside you. And how do you realize that? Is by these simple steps of, regular practice. Change the habits. Bring in a habit of questioning yourself before everything you do. For a second, just question, like, why am I doing this? You're going for a party, you're going for a family function, okay? Have you ever felt this? You are in midst of hundreds of people. There is so much of a vitalistic activity is happening, or so much of things, so much happening. Even let's not take the word vital there. There is so much happening, but you feel cut out. Have you ever felt that? I do most of the times, at least off late. Initially, I used to be very, very happy with that, running in that flow. Oh, there is dance happening, there is music happening, a function now off late. Marriages are like, a 7-day process. It's no more a 1-day traditional process. You have Sangeet, you have Mehndi, you have reception, you have this, you have that. There is a lot of food, a lot of dance and activity happening. In spite of all that, you're feeling cut out. I wouldn't say lost. You're cut out. Right? Now, what is happening? It's a change in your system. If you think for a second, you might say, I'm just bored, yeah. Maybe I've seen so much of this partying and all that, I'm just bored. Then you're actually not observing what is happening in you. So, if we inculcate those kind of habits, then we slowly understand what this self is and a true explanation of self-awareness. You're being aware of what is happening in your own system. When we know what is happening in our own system, then let's talk about others. Because usually what happens in our societal thing is, we first talk about others. Right? If you're two people sitting, please tell me that. Don't we do that? Two people sitting, we always talk about the third person. Oh, he is like that, she is like that, they have done this, they have been like that. It's easy to, judgmentally pass a statement. But when we know ourselves, we are not bothered about what and how others are. So the step is inward, not outward. The first thing to know about self is that. Let me read this beautiful sonnet by Sri Aurobindo. And it's a very funny and a very interesting poem, if I have to say. He said, I am egoless, spiritual, free. He said, I am egoless, spiritual, free. Then swore, because his dinner was not ready. I asked him why. He said, it is not me, but the belly's hungry God who gets unsteady. I asked him why. He said, it's not me, but the belly's hungry God who gets unsteady. I asked him why. He said, it is his play. I am unmoved within, desireless, pure. I am unmoved within, desireless, pure. I care not what may happen day by day. I questioned him. Are you so very sure? He answered, I can understand your doubt, but to be free is all. It does not matter how you may kick and howl and rage and shout. How you may kick, howl, rage and shout, making a row over your daily platter. To be aware of self is liberty. Self I have got, and having self I am free. Let me reread few lines of this sonnet again so that we understand and connect to whatever we have been discussing so far. He said, I am egoless, spiritual and free. Someone comes and then claims, I am egoless. I am free of everything. You see so many spiritual gurus of late happening in our society, right? I am egoless, I am spiritual, I am free. Then swore because his dinner was not ready. We must have seen these kind of situations in our life, right? I asked him why. He said, it's not me, but the belly's hungry God who gets unsteady. For me, this line reminded me of Chinna Krishna. He eats the butter, he steals the butter, and when Yashoda Mata asks, why are you stealing it? He says, it's not me, it's my tummy God. He's not satisfied with whatever I eat and how much ever I eat. Then Yashoda asks, You have a lot of a butter which is being churned in your own house. Then why don't you eat here than going to the other Gopika's house? Then he says in a beautiful composition it's there, but he says, your butter tastes best, but the other mother's butter, I want to see if yours is the best in the whole Vrindavan, or I'm just assuming yours is the best. So I will still go and eat the butter there, but I'll complain, or I will do whatever I've been doing. I am not going to stop that. So here he very similarly on those lines he says, it's the belly's hungry God who gets unsteady. I asked him why. He said, it is his play. I am unmoved within, desireless and pure. I care not what may happen day by day. I questioned him, are you so very sure? He answered, I can understand your doubt. Ikkada varaku it's only a conversation. We can just see the wittiness of Sri Aurobindo and how actually it beautifully being a conversation. It's as if he's having a conversation with his own inner self and the outer personality of an individual. Then he says, how you may kick and howl and rage and shout, making a row over your daily platter. Doesn't matter how much you cry, shout and complain about things. To be aware of self is liberty. To be aware of self is liberty. Self I have got, and having self I am free. Now the question comes, what is the self that the master is talking about? He says, knowing yourself, that's the liberty. To be aware of self is liberty. And one line about it, he says, you might cry, kick, howl, rage about your daily life, but know yourself, that is liberty. For a generic perspective, I don't want to use the word layman's perspective, but from a general perspective, if you actually see, you're crying and complaining about what is happening in your life, then you're not aware of yourself, right? You're not even knowing why you're crying, why you're kicking, why you're complaining about it. There was this one incident I really have to share when it comes about crying and complaining about things. As all of us are, I was also at a point, not that I'm not complaining about life now, I'm still not there. But the realization of this complaint, or why am I comparing, or being aware of whether I'm complaining or not, came in when I was reading Alipur Tales. That particular day, I was literally complaining with my own family that, you guys have not been doing anything back home, you're not helping, and I'm the one who has been doing everything. I was so frustrated. I'm sure each one of us go through these kind of situations back home, or even at your office also, right? Then I was so irritated, frustrated. I went out. I said, okay, I just want to read for some time. I'm so irritated. I took this book, randomly picked this book, and I've never read that book till that date. I randomly picked that book, randomly opened, and I was reading how Sri Aurobindo's life was in Alipur. When I read that he has used only one cup for everything, like I don't even have to describe. Everything, it's only one steel cup. He was in a solitary confinement wherein it's just 4 walls, and he was not complaining about anything. He got an opportunity to walk outside the jail. That itself was an amazing, beautiful, blissful moment for him. Then the thought came in, then what am I complaining about? It's not a comparison again. It's not a comparison like Sri Aurobindo did, so why can't I do? When the Gurudev can do, why can't I do? No. He did because he's him. He is a Siddha. He's a avatar. But when someone like that stature can not complain about anything whatsoever happening in his life, and then let his life with that equanimity, when I have everything being provided, almost everything for your basic comforts to even excess of what an individual should need, do you really have to complain? Just because someone hasn't put a glass in a particular place that I want it to be, do I really have to complain about it? Or do you really have to cry about it? Do you really have to feel irritated about it? This is what, literally, I swear, the whole perspective changed. I still tell my folks, please try to put it in a place, because it's about order, it's about perfection, it's about beauty. But I am not reacting the way I did. I am not shouting. I am not frustrated about they are not doing things even after my repetitive, asking. That thing changed. So when we try to look into ourselves like that, I think it just changed. And you don't even know, or we don't even understand when it changed and how it changed. But the next time when you're acting upon a situation, the way you act upon completely changes. Very beautifully changes. Now coming back to the sonnet. Now what is the self that Sri Aurobindo is talking about? Is this self stand for a body? Is the self stand for the mind? Is the self stand for ego? Or is there something else? This is a question that asked by a sadhak and where I've picked up from the compilations. When a self is being talked about, is it about the body, mind, ego, or is there anything else beyond that? How can we really figure this out? Because till now, whatever we spoke, or till now, whatever we have heard, read, it's all either about the body, it's about the mind, it's about the ego, or it's about bringing a balance to all this. So is this all self about? Now, for example, I say, okay, now as I've given you my example, I can say, okay, now that I have understood, I am not supposed to react in this particular way, or I am not supposed to be mad, or tondriga kopam rakudu, or I am not supposed to compare, because this again comes back to a beautiful word, self-esteem. When you start comparing, your self-esteem is gone, it gets affected. And then I suddenly realized that, okay, I am not supposed to compare. Okay, let me have my own targets, I work on it, and then I'm working on it. Any of these smaller things that are happening, is that the self? So I am now self-aware, totally self-aware of whatever I'm doing, and I can call myself as a sadhak, just to use a word that way, or have I attained, or am I different from others? Can I call myself to be a little different? I said 80% of the people don't even know, 90% of the people don't even know what is happening within. Now, for example, I say, I know what is happening within, minuscule of what is happening. Can I say that, okay, I have known myself, or is there anything beyond? This concept of self, whether it is a body, mind, ego, can be it's a debatable topic. Honestly speaking, with the vitarka, we can do a lot of a debate on it to dwell into this concept of body, mind, and ego. But when I am saying be aware of yourself, that means I can also use the word be conscious. Can I use that? To be aware of yourself is to be conscious of what is happening in yourself. Now, if I am taking body as my if I say it's a project, I am trying to understand that that's a module. My body is my module. Is my physical conscious? Is the physical conscious all by itself? I am hurt. Okay, I've cut my finger. I feel pain. Is that the body that is feeling the pain, or is it something else telling me that your body is feeling pain? The mind comes into picture here. The mind says you are. But on a contradictory, we also talk about physical memory. Yes or no? You must have heard this word, physical memory. If my body is not conscious, then how am I having a memory of physical? How is that physical memory is there? What is this physical memory we are talking about then? So that means body has consciousness, but it is not active. Or we can say the body has its own consciousness, but we are not aware of that. If we go to the further, these things of Tantra and the Puja Shaktis, or the different forms of praying Shakti, we see this physical aspect of consciousness. And then if you're sitting here, especially in Tantra, you're sitting here, and you must have seen in the movies and all that, right? I'm not talking the black magic, but the original Tantra aspect of it, the positive aspect of Tantra. They can see what is happening with the other person's body for the farther distance. They are not actually in a closest proximity as well, but then that happens. So the physical has got, the body has got a consciousness, but we are not still aware of it. So in order to be aware of it, the mind helps it. Slightly the mind comes into picture. Now if you go back to the same example, I am cut, I am bleeding, I am feeling pain. The mind says you are cut. So is my feeling again through mind? Is mind feeling the pain, or is my emotion, the vital, feeling the pain? The mind is only feeling the pain. But then where is the vital coming in this? Is vital not connected to this? Your emotions not, you're crying, right? So when you cry, is that not your emotion that you're trying to express through? So with a small cut on the physical level, it is connecting to the mind, it is connecting to your vital, it is connecting to your emotions. Take hurt for example. Now the third question is, does self stand for ego? Is the question. Someone said something, I am hurt. We say this, right? They said something, I am hurt. What is this I am hurt? What is hurt? There is no physical cut on your body. Your mind is not saying that you are cut. You can't see anything, but still you are hurt, and we carry that hurt for Janmas together, years together. Yeah. Wherever we find an opportunity, we try to criticize them, or we try to bring in that point, and at least make sure to tell them that I am hurt because you said so and so things about me. How can you do this? Now the ego is actually coming in that. That is the ego. So the self is now being dominated by all these things, and then bringing up the ego in front, and then says, okay, I am not supposed to be treated like this. And that is coming in front, and then giving a very beautiful, again, a picture. How do we overcome all this? Suppose, again going back, I said you have to be aware of yourself, right? Now even the sonnet also, Gurudev says, self is a liberty. How do we reach that, or even think of it, rather than going round and round the cycle in this process of mind, body, ego, vital, and all that? You know, whether we are stuck, it's a tangle. How are we going to untangle ourselves? This is where the concept of giving comes. Forget about self-giving, it's a huge thing. Giving. What is that you are giving? Okay, when I say word give, generic sense, what, suppose you have something in something with you, and you are giving it to someone. What is that you are giving? You are giving whatever is excess with you, right? Yes or no? You don't dig everything, whatever you have, and then you give. Whatever we are giving is the excess that you have. There are people who don't even do that, and we call them miser. So they don't even want to give, whether they have an excess or not, they don't want to give. They come into a different category altogether. But here when we are taking give, we are giving whatever is excess. But if you go back to the Puranic stories, there are so many stories that we can actually recollect, wherein a poor Brahmin, usually all the stories connect back to usually a poor Brahmin's life, because they don't have anything to eat. And those days Brahmins usually they were on Bhikshatana, or being a pujari in a temple, wherein there is no so much of an economical stability for sure. So all these stories go back to that poor hermitage's house. So they are eating, they have one meal, hardly collected a meal, they are eating, and then a devata, whether it's Lord Shiva or Vishnu or Durga, whichever deity we talk about, that is the essence of all those folklores that we have. They come disguised, and then they ask for Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi. If the poor person feels, oh man, this is very less and I can't give, the Devata simply walks away from there, because she feels this is not a place where I can come and stay. Okay? But if that poor Brahmin gives away whatever he has got, and then says, as an Athithi Devo Bhava has been imbibed into our culture, and if he's following that and then he brings them in and then feeds them, the Devata gets into their house, they are pleased, and then they are pratisthishanta, they are settled in their house. And these are the folklores that we all heard about it. And mother also very beautifully says, giving is not until it pinches. Until it pinches, it is not called giving. You are absolutely not giving. When we say we are giving, you are actually showing off or feeding your ego. Ego is happily feeling, oh, I gave so and so for this organization, or I fed so and so people, I went there, I gave them. So, what is this I again is happily feeding on that. So, it is not giving. Why I bought that giving concept here is there something else to answer that question? Is where we are driving it. Is there genuinely something else apart from the body, mind, ego, vital we are talking about to understand the self? So that is your gift. We are not seeking our personal salvation, but the absolute self-giving of a being to the divine. We are not seeking our personal salvation. There is no personal agenda behind it. There is no agenda like, okay, this year I do this japa, this year I do a meditation, I reach a particular stage in my sadhana. This is not a 10th grade exam or anything wherein you say, I do this and then I achieve this. There is no, this is not a directly proportional equation that you can put it as an algebraic equation and then solve. We are not seeking our personal salvation, but the absolute self-giving of our being to the divine. The generosity of your absolute self-giving will bring to you the revelation of the generosity of the divine's love. The generosity of your absolute self-giving will bring to you the revelation of the generosity of the divine's love. When will you give something? When I say give something, again back to that question, is only when you are aware of what is happening, and when you, as I said, when you are aware of what is happening in your own system, the overall perspective changes. The way you pursue things changes. And when that changes, this giving also comes into picture. And when you are giving, that divine's love is your motto. This is what Mother says. The generosity of your absolute self-giving will bring to you the revelation of the generosity of the divine's love. Then self. Even the individual self is different from our personality. Now are you able to connect the dots? Why we started at personality and then put the thing to self-giving? Unless and until this whole journey happens, it's like putting a basketball into the basket, literally. Till we understand that the self-giving is very important, and to reach that self-giving, you need to start observing yourself, then accept it. One major point that I really missed when I'm saying is to first accept it. It is okay. When we start observing ourselves, we would see lot of habits and traits in our own self which shocks us. Multiple layers and layers. Again, this is a continuous process. It is not about, okay, I've realized, as I was giving my own example of comparison, it is not that it is done, or complaining, it is not done. I might subtly be complaining, maybe I'm not vocal about it, but I am doing it. I might be complaining big time, but I'm thinking I'm not complaining. So there are these multiple levels, sublime levels of understanding our own self. And that's when the self, even the individual self, is different from our personality, as it is different from our mental ego-ness. Then your ego is vanished, then your personality traits are gone, then all your samskaras are changed, your habits are changed, you as a person has totally changed, and then you understand what the self is all about. In Gita, Sri Krishna gave a beautiful phrase which actually says, elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself, for the mind can be the friend and also the enemy of yourself. Similar line in the initial thing, we said ego can be a darkest spot, ego can be a guidance for your growth. And Lord Krishna is very beautifully saying, elevate yourself through the power of your mind and not degrade yourself. Again, that doesn't mean just give a positive affirmations to you always. I am good, I am good, I am good. No, that also is kind of boosting your ego constantly. When we, usually the psychologist, the modern psychologist speaks about that. When someone is facing a challenge, they come and tell you, do a positive affirmation, then everything will be all right. That is a momentary thing. When you constantly give a positive affirmation to yourself, then you are not accepting what you are. Unless and until we accept what we are not building a proper esteem to work on these things, isn't it? Now, 24 hours I tell myself, I am good, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. When there is a challenge, you don't even know how to navigate the challenge because your mind is very clearly saying, I can do it, yeah. So there is every possibility it gets to the other end of it, right? It's a subtle corner, it's a very thin thread. It can very clearly say, it can overestimate. We can overestimate our own capacities as well. In that case, then how are we going to resolve it? Isn't it? So here, the balance is very, very important. How we are going to build that balance and hold that thread. Alokda very beautifully mentioned somewhere in one of the talks, if suppose you're scared of something or you lack a courage to deal with it, you're afraid something will happen, okay? Or maybe that again, that fear is also through your past experiences. Some accident happened and then your kid maybe just fell and then you feel so scared. Next time the child is climbing the wall, as the wall example we took, you might be scared that the kid will fall again and hurt himself or herself. Instead of saying, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, he says, use the other end of the thread, the courage. Don't use this word so many times because this is building its own power there and then making your own circumstances weaker. It is not building your personality but then pulling you down. Rather than that, ask mother. I said you connect to your Ishtadaiva. That is one way of opening up and bringing that self-awareness. Ask, give me the courage to face this. I am worried. Let's not even use the word fear. But I'm in a situation that I don't know how to handle. Give me a courage to move that. The same thing is what Krishna mentioned in this beautiful thing, right? Not to degrade yourself, but again, don't be in that constant positive connotations that you can do, wherein it will take you to the other end of it. The mind can be a friend and also an enemy of the self. A very beautiful statement that I think I have marked it and I'm going to put it in my room for sure. Your mind can be a friend and also an enemy of self. Mind plays games. That's the duty of a mind. That is how the mind works. But if we are not able to differentiate between whether it is helping you or whether it is kind of destroying you, then we are doomed. And how can we do it? Again, observing. It's again, go back to the flow chart again. Everything we do, it's just the same flow chart. Observe, accept, and then try to work on it. When you say accept, it's actually a beautiful thing to accept. Because when you accept, only then you nurture it. Whether good or bad. Once you start nurturing it, that is when you know whether that, suppose I'll take an example of a plant, okay? You have a seed, an unknown seed, and you just got the seed, you've put it in the mud. You don't know whether it's a rose plant or a cactus. But till it emerges out of the ground and then starts, sapling, you don't even know, you have to accept it. You have to do whatever you're doing. Now suppose if it is a cactus, and this cactus is very, very hard with bigger tones. Even cactus has got beautiful flowers, by the way. But if you don't like cactus, you're not happy about the cactus, you can at least go to next seed and then nurture that. Right? Before doing that, you can't really come to a conclusion and let the mind play and then say, Arey, what if it's a cactus and I don't want to waste my energy and time on nurturing this seed now? Then you're not going anywhere. Right? I'll be concluding this in 5 minutes with just few very beautiful quotes by Mother and Gurudev. One paragraph that I found very, very interesting and relevant to our talk is about self-realization. It's a big word. We are still with the awareness aspect of it and the knowing self. But then, when this unity has been realized by the individual in every part of his being, he becomes perfect, pure, liberated from ego and the dualities of it, possessed of the entire divine facility. Atman, our true self, is Brahman. It is pure individualized being, self concentrated in consciousness, self concentrated in force, self delighted. Self concentrated in consciousness, self concentrated in force, self delighted. Its existence is light and bliss. It is timeless, spaceless, and free. Its existence is light and bliss. It is timeless, spaceless, and free. What is that Mother is saying us to be united with Him? When this unity has been realized, the first statement, what is that we have to be united with to reach this aspect that we talked about, self-concentrated consciousness, self-concentrated in force, action, blissfulness. What is that? One step back, divine love. Remember, we were talking about the self-giving, and then Mother says the divine's love. Usually, this is again my own personal experience, and I'm sharing it so that you all can actually connect. Love is a very beautiful connection that can be between human beings, animals, whether you connect to trees, any living organism that way. And all the Puranas, especially the Krishna Leela, talks about the love in general. Krishna's love for all his Ganas, all his Gopikas, Gopalakas, his wives, and how these Gopikas and Gopalakas are so connected to Krishna. I think I've mentioned this in one of my previous talks also, but I want to bring in this. There was a question asked by one of the bhaktas in Dwarka after Krishna moved to Dwarka. We just want to understand how is that only Gopikas were so connected to you. If you go back to the Bhagavad Gita's, you very clearly hear when the flute is being played. Okay? And in the shlokas also, even the Potana Amatya also mentioned in one of his shlokas saying that Pasugana, all the animals and the Gopikas were so beautifully dancing to the tunes of the Krishna, and then they just left everything behind, whatever they are doing in their houses, and then they just went to Krishna's abode. So there was one witty question asked by one of the court members in Dwaraka. How is that only women were connected to you? How is that none of your stories talk about Gopalakas coming and joining you? Only when you were a kid, we heard that the little boys were playing with you, but after that, it's all the women who were connecting to. Then Krishna very beautifully says, women, animals, tree, they are very delicate. They are very emotionally open. It is not that I am playing a flute for a particular set of people who are open, people who are aware of their, I wouldn't say inner self, but people who are aware of their bhakti, people who have an urge to come to me as a bhakta. The channel is open. Mostly it's been because in nature, by nature, the built is like that. So you see, the women are coming to me, but it is not a gender biased thing. It is about the openness. On the similar lines, the divine's love. We all have been one point or the other might have sat near the samadhi and have asked Gurudev and Mother, help me with this relationship in my life, or help me with, my child is not doing the way I think is right, guide them out. You might have done that, right? Or my work is not this thing, so help me out with it. Help me this, help me with that. So whatever we are asking, the essence is love only. We are asking for their own benefit. We are asking for our own benefit. And the connection between this asking is love. That is true. absolutely truth. But when the state comes and then you feel she is there, he is there, and I really don't have to ask them these pettiest things to navigate my life, but ask to be connected to them always, ask to be in their abode always, like all the gopikas and everybody wanted to be in his abode, Krishna's love. I swear, the way again you look at yourself, the way you ask things, the way you pursue your own self changes totally. In fact, then there is no question of asking comes. There is nothing that you have to ask, and that is what Gurudev also says, right? The divine's will. Maybe we don't understand what their will is yet because we still don't know what our will is. But then for sure there is a change. There is a change the way you look at yourself, you look at your surroundings, you pursue your own self. Self as an inner being of the individual, the inmost being or psychic being, according to him, is the very manifestation of the Brahman. This is what Gurudev answering the fourth question that was asked. Is self, what were the four questions? Is self the body? Is self the mind? Is self the ego? Or is there something else? And the Gurudev is coming into a conclusion after so much of a tarka vitarka process. He is saying self as an inner being of the individual. When I am saying the inner journey, whatever we spoke about, to be aware of yourself, to be aware of your thoughts, to be aware of your actions, to accept what you are, build an esteem in such a way wherein you are not comparing yourself with anybody and then feeling low, but then you have your own targets to reach. That is a self-esteem. That is how we build a self-esteem. Again, saying is easy. Do not compare yourself to others is very easy. Doing is not. Absolutely not. Because again comes back to the same point. Your conditions, your peer pressure, the societal norms, we are all stuck with that. Saying is very easy. But if we can take even a minuscule of a step to understand these things and then take one step after another and reach to a point of a self-giving to the Lord, to your Ishtadaiva, to Mother, to Sri Aurobindo, then that self, then obviously your inner journey has started. Doesn't matter how much you have walked through the journey, it started, it has taken. First step has been taken. When this as an inner being of an individual, this inmost being or the psychic being, according to him, is the very manifestation of the Brahman. So as per the Vedas, we say Brahman, self is the Brahman. Gurudev is saying the psychic is the Brahman. In this way, he beautifully draws a correlation of Jivatman or a psychic being with that of a Paramatman or God, standing far beyond the reach of the ordinary mental consciousness of man. The psychic being or self is actually the individual expression of a divinity hidden within each human being. Beyond the mental consciousness of man, the psychic being or self is actually the individual expression of divinity hidden within each human being. Initially we said, Bhagavantudu akkadekado, we are here, and at least that way we are trying to connect to the higher self. But I said the Vedas, the Vedantas, the Upanishads and everything says the divine, the divinity is within you. And you have to realize that, and that's exactly what Gurudev is very beautifully saying. The divine, the divinity hidden within each human being. If you are able to connect to the psychic being, again to realize the psychic, there are multiple processes that we have been talking. But once that inward step happens and you realize the psychic, you will feel a difference. You know, you see people when they go to a place like this, you see tears coming out. It is not out of pain, it is not out of joy, it's about the psychic tear. We call it as a psychic tears because something inside you is craving for that love. Something, some part of you which we don't know what, but it is craving for that connection with the divine, connection with Mother, connection with Sri Aurobindo, connection with the Gurudev there. Self-giving, by this the whole being gets progressively unified around the central psychic being. So in this talk, the way I plan, you just have to go a step back. Even by the pattern of the conversation, you have to take a step back. Self-giving, when that self-giving happens, your psychic opens. When the psychic opens, you understand yourself much more. To go to self-giving, you have to first start observing yourself and then see what is happening within yourself. Accept your habits, accept your samskaras, accept your swadharma. Accept. When we accept the swadharma, on all these comparisons, what others think, what happens with how others are pursuing completely vanishes because you're playing by your own swadharma. And that is also by observation we can get it. Give yourself entirely to the divine and you will see the end of all your troubles. Give yourself entirely to the divine and you will see the end of all your troubles. Always pray when you're trying to connect to Mother Sri Aurobindo. Pray that your psychic want is fulfilled, not what your mind sees, not the vital sees. Because where we are, it's easy to at least understand. I wouldn't say you can clearly focus on it, but at least on an average, we can understand what the mind is asking for and how your emotions are working, the vital is working. But what mind is asking for, what the vital is asking for again are on the peripheral levels. We still don't know what is your real self call. But if we inculcate this habit of praying when we sit before Mother, I don't know what my psychic is asking for, but help me realize that. Let that psychic come forth. Let not the vital mind, my physical play. They let be a supporting system, but let them not rule. This understanding of self. And this is where I go back to the sonnet, the last 2 lines of it. To be aware of self is liberty. When this happens, you feel that liberty. You are not bonded by any of things that bother us. The societal norms, our own understandings, nothing bothers us. Self I have got, and having self I am free. And this free is not the moksha that Gurudev is talking about. Usually generic understanding of being free is, being free of all the bondages that we have, moksha, nirvana. No. The free of the mental blockages and bondages that we carry, being free of the emotional baggages and emotional components we carry because we crave to fill those buckets. I very usually funnily say this emotional bucket. People have these buckets and buckets of emotional craving, and we all have that, and nothing wrong. That is how we live, that is how we exist. But once we understand this, and once that psychic ask is different, that self-giving is different, and when we crave for the only divine's love and nothing else, believe me, once we taste that, it's like tasting the best of the sweets ever. You don't want to eat any other sweet, isn't it? The best in every sense, the quality, flavors, fragrance, and all sense. You eat something and your palates will never want to relish any other sweet, no matter how beautifully they present it. That is the divine's love. And once we are able to even open ourselves to ask, forget about feeling it, realizing it, it's in life's process. But even we ask for it, that ask also should not be a mental ask. You see the change, you see the quality. When you ask for it, if you have written it in your book as an agenda and then say, okay, whenever I'm sitting for my prayer or whenever I'm sitting for meditation, I will say, okay, let my psychic come out. That will also work. Eventually it will work. Mother says, ask anything. And she's there to grant it. But the quality of you genuinely feel connected and asking for that psychic thing to come out to understand that self, the quality is very different. And if we aspire to that, Gurudev says that's the liberty, that's the freedom. On that note, let's take a moment's silence and then do an Omkaram 3 times. Mm-hmm.